Welcome to Rules of Villainy, episode 29, where three new trading card game players quest and challenge their way to competitive top tables and discuss their opinions on Disney's Lorcana. This week, we'll be discussing the latest news in Lorcana, answering your questions, and going over the latest developments in the metagame. I'm Villain Vince, joined as always by my two co-hosts, Villain Andy and the Mayor of Lorcana, Brad. As you can see, we're also joined by Villainous Kirsten of Rules of Villainy. How you doing tonight, everyone?
Feeling good. Not great.
Fantastic.
But Kirsten's feeling great after this weekend.
It was a good weekend. It's been a great week. What can I say?
was on quite the opposite end of that spectrum. I'm sure we'll talk about it more later. But yeah, just wasn't my weekend. Wasn't my weekend in the Lorcana world.
I see we also have a Calico guest.
Yes, we have Lenny making
Hey,
her
Lenny.
appearance because she jumped on my desk, and I don't need her to bite anything.
Yeah. Same Brad though. My weekend it was some good, some bad. Started off bad with a 21 out of 22 place at Fortuna. In fairness, I did drop after round 4 because I had a flat tire and I needed to go get that fixed. So
Sure.
But then Sunday we had the live stream, and that was a ton of fun.
Absolutely.
It was quite the experience indeed.
I should retract what I said before. I had a bad weekend playing Lorcana, but Lorcana in general in St. Louis was amazing this weekend. And yeah, Grape's game set championship live stream video in the description. You guys killed it. You guys absolutely killed it. Congratulations on that.
Honestly, I really just want to thank the viewers for everybody who tuned in and listened to Andy and us. Andy and I for like basically 8 hours for the live stream, the Rules of Villainy at Grape's Game Set Championship for Azurite C. It was a phenomenal experience. Andy and I really enjoyed doing it. And, I think everybody here had a guest experience on it, both casting and Kirsten, you were casting and you got an interview in on the stream. So you should definitely go check that out. Like Brad said, it'll be linked in our show notes. But what an amazing thing it was. We had, I think, at most 110 viewers at any one given time. And so I was just like seeing the
crazy
amount go up as like Andy's computer was slowly about to explode. But it was really, really great. We had Harlan Sweet was in the chat. We had B Squared made an appearance. In fact, I think even the person you played, Brad, at I can't remember her name, and I feel really bad about it.
Rachel.
But, yeah, she was playing the Mean Girls deck.
Yep.
So yeah. And we had some kids on the stream. We had Mikey and
we had the Mayor and Mikey show for a little bit.
Yeah.
He had a blast. I talked to his parents later, and Tabitha said that he was on cloud 9 getting to have those headphones on and hang out with us for a little bit. So I'm so happy we could give him that experience because it was a blast.
I don't think I don't think I told you this, that Heather and Reed were on, and Heather was telling me about how much Reed loved being on. Like, it was like a highlight of his day. He went home and like talked to his dad about it and like made him pull up the video to watch where he was on the show,
I love it.
So great.
It's a big deal to kids. I remember when we first started doing this. I don't think I've ever told you guys this. When we started doing this, my friends, just interested. They don't play Lorcana. I give their kids my cards, my bulk a lot of times, and they turned on our channel one time and saw me on YouTube, and the kids were blown away. Like, Brad's on YouTube, and to have that that mentality again. Just thinking about how like cool it is for the kids to see people that they know doing these things or themselves being Mikey and Reed and all them. I just love giving them that opportunity and seeing that excitement.
Yeah, and I just have to say thank you, Andy, for making the streams better and better each and every time.
Yeah, Andy, you
and
kill
I'm
it,
excited
man.
for our plans going on to the next stream on February 8th, right? February 8th.
Yes.
Yeah, I
You
think,
should know by now, Vince.
Yeah, I think we
Listen,
got
I've got
a
so
new
many dates in my head.
we got a new computer, but a potential new fire hazard in the way we potentially build like an indoor anti-greenhouse to try and
Yeah.
block out some of the light.
I gotta I need to go buy the fabric for that. I should have done that tonight. I was at like close to Joann's to do it, and I should have done it. But
spray paint one of the lights at Grapes with some black spray paint and just.
We don't need the fire marshal to come visit us
No.
like in the midst of doing this.
Mm-mm.
So, I mean, think about the ideas we've had. I do like this idea because my original idea was to get like the indoor tent, like
yeah,
not an
canopy,
indoor
like a
tent, but
barbecue
yeah.
that you take to the barbecue or the beach or tailgating.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to do the next one. But I think what's most astounding to me is that we hit over 200 subscribers.
Yeah.
So I think like I checked this morning and we were at 209 subscribers. Brad, I think you've updated us where we're at now.
214.
214,
Woohoo.
which
A
is
week ago,
wild.
we were at 158. So
Yeah.
like the live stream, the amount of people that came in and joined us, had fun with us, chatted with us, and stuck around for the longevity of the show. Thank you guys so much for making that happen.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible. When we said last week, I think Andy we'll talk a little bit about the bet that he made at the 200 subscriber mark. I don't think he thought that was in reaching distance, at least that quickly, right?
No.
Well, neither did you, Brad, though, because I'm going to call you out here because on Saturday we were at Fortuna and I was just joking about the Russo people because we had a big turnout. We had 22 people there, which is a large turnout for what is a pretty small space. And I was like, hey, everyone, if you subscribe we're like getting close to 200. If you subscribe, Andy will play. He has promised to play Ruby Steel. And I think this is a response to something smart Andy said to me. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get you. and Brad was like, well, how many subscribers are we at? And I think I said like 150 something or whatever. And he's like, well, we haven't moved at all. And so it's like, we're not going to get close.
Do I sound like that? We haven't moved at all. But I'll always treasure. I took a screenshot of it, and I should probably share it in our Discord of the last moments of the Grapes Games set championship. He's interviewing Kirsten, and we notified him that at 8 o'clock that night, 8:30 that night, as we're wrapping up the live stream, we're at 198 subscribers, which is 40 more than we had. And he just was like, "Oh my god!"
It was that way during the entire stream. We would keep getting more and more subscribers, and like you could just see Andy sweating more. He's like, man, I really am gonna have to play this jank deck art. Ruby Steel Mill for the win.
In his defense, and I know we're kind of walking over, getting a lot. I'm sorry, Andy. The amount of effort he's putting into that deck is respectable. Like, he's not treating it as a joke. Like, he's actually making an effort to make it work. And I've saw glimpses of it already, and we've been theorizing and everything, and there's something there, and I feel like he has the capacity to make it work, and I'm really excited to see how successful he can actually make it. How are you feeling with it, Andy?
I mean, like, it's gonna be Ruby's Steel. I just don't know how much milling we'll get to do.
Yeah.
It wins and it loses. It does some pretty good things. I like some of the different combos that it has, but honestly, the thing that holds me back the most is that I forego maybe better lines to try and obviously mill them out with Maui Shark and Infinite Whole New Worlds. I have done it a couple times successfully, and it is pretty awesome. I played John, our teammate, and made him sort of I had him down to 5 cards, and I was down to like 10, and I had a Whole New World in my deck, and I was like, if I could top deck this, I win. But I got him in one of the other games, so he was like playing around. The fact that he might just be milled like 21 cards in one turn. And I was like, oh, that's, it makes them think different, but it's not the greatest. It's not the easiest win condition,
No, it is definitely a difficult win condition.
There's 60 cards and 20 lore. I think going for lore is usually a little bit easier.
Yeah, for sure. How have you decided on which event you're gonna play it at?
Probably the game night set champs this coming weekend, so that I can get it over with. And it'll probably be most conducive since you guys help run that place. Yeah,
I'm just gonna put you at table 1,
and I'll just be able to sit at a table.
You're not gonna move.
And then
Everybody else is gonna move.
And get like a little camera set up there, and it might not be the best recorded setup, but I think we could probably do something like sort of my POV. We'll just get like a camera on my side of the table pointing down at the game, and I can wear a mic as I play the game, and we can either live stream it or
Well, as I always say, for $5 a month on our non-existent Patreon, you too can watch our extra content.
No, you promised them all that it would be recorded or it'd be able to be watched in some way.
I did.
Otherwise, I would just tell them I played Ruby Steel already and I won. Hooray! I'm so good at the game.
Yeah, we can figure out and set it up. But I'm excited for it. And I just want to say to our viewers, thank you so much for subscribing. And if you're new here, we really hope you enjoy our content. And please give us feedback on things that you want. And as we'll talk about later, join our Discord and the community. We got a great burgeoning community coming together here. And we've got a lot of exciting, fun things planned in this great year of Lorcana. Moving on to, though, our Underworld news. We have, I will say there's been kind of a dearth of news in the Lorcana space. But there was 3 new sets kind of have been announced, or we've seen at the London Toy Fair. So we've got some of them were announced at the EU Championships, and so we're finally seeing some of the product at the Toy Fair. But there was one potential set we don't know. Unclear. We'll talk a little bit about it. But we've got Arcasia's Island, so we saw a lot more of the artwork, that not card artwork, but like some of the retail product stuff. The Reign of Jafar, did I get that right, Brad?
You did. Congratulations. That's the first time.
I know. I had it as the Return of Jafar.
Yeah.
You know what?
It's a movie.
It'll come. What was that a movie?
Anyway.
It probably was.
Aladdin 2, The Return of Jafar.
I think so.
So Arcasia's Island will be released on March 7th, and the Reign of Jafar will be released on June 6th. But we did get this kind of tease of Fabled. And so there's been a lot of debate in the community about what this product is.
It's not a new set, Vince.
It might be. It might be part of, like, in my mind, I want that set to be the same art style as this Fabled thing, because I think that looks incredible. But yeah, I'm not convinced that it is an entire set. It wasn't described to sound like a set. It sounded more like a multiplayer mini game. Again, it could be like Ursula's Return, the Lumineers quest, or I feel like Ravensburger already has their hands in the board game sphere, and they've already tested it with Lorcana, that this is just another version of that, and I'm not opposed to something like that, as long as it's compelling and replayable, because as I've said before, the Lumineers quest, I loved playing it the 2 or 3 times that I've played it, but I just don't have the urge to return to it, right? So
yeah,
just speculating.
What
I don't
are you
know.
talking about, Brad? You and I still have to beat Ursula on Extreme. We kind of like abandoned.
We know what to
after
do.
World.
We just haven't. We haven't built the deck to do it. Right?
Well, my thought about this is like I think they're likely, and I have no knowledge of this, right? But I just assume at this point that we're probably going to get another Lumineers quest type product associated with Arena Jafar, right? One, it's like we saw the whole half hexball crown. We see Jafar is wearing that crown in the artwork. So it just feels like it's kind of the evolution of that story.
Yeah.
With that being said, I think we talked a lot about the fact that like $60 is a pretty expensive price point for the Illumineers quest for something. And so, they could package it in potentially different ways. Like, for instance, we're seeing the gift set for Arcasia's Island being repackaged in a different way from other gift sets. And so we could see something more akin to just like Illumineers quest deck, right? That just has the, a Jafar deck in win conditions, and you buy it instead of getting, those two formatted decks. Because I think the whole point of set 4 of having the Lumineers quest was to provide another gateway for folks to get into the game. I feel like by set, what we're talking set 7, right? No, set 8 with Jafar return Reign of Jafar. I even wrote it down right, and I still get it wrong. I feel like we're getting more in the establishment of it being a TCG, so it doesn't need to have the other components of the decks, right? It doesn't need to have the built decks.
I feel like there's always going to be new players, right? And if a new player is intrigued by this set, and it doesn't have all the pieces to play it, then it's just saying, hey, buy this. This is really cool, but you also need to go buy some single player decks and play Lorcana, so it.
Yeah, but you got to do that. That's what you have to do. Yeah, that's what a TCG is about. I mean, like, I'm not trying to be mean. Like, I want new players and I want Lorcana to be accessible, but like the way you play Lorcana, the way you play these games is you buy cards. Whether you buy packs, which is what I think Ravensburger and Disney would obviously want you to do, or you buy cards on the secondary market to build decks.
I think this is asking a lot, though. I think it's asking a lot for someone to walk into a big box store somewhere, or even their local game shop, and see what is the Reign of Jafar, Illumineers Quest DLC box, extra content box, and to expect them to be able to buy that. And then turn around and ask the clerk about which booster packs they have, all 8 sets there to choose from, and starter decks to choose from, and then be able to buy those. And then not to mention that those cards you get are not designed to play against the Reign of Jafar, as we've seen with the Ursula thing. The way I see this sort of content working with Ravensburger is, first off, I don't think we're necessarily going to get another Illumineers quest. In fact, I hope we don't. Because I think that would just sort of be rehashed, and like Brad said, that game, it was cool, but it was it was not very high replayability. And one of the things we saw in one of the videos was basically that they said this is going to be fun. The Fabled thing will be fun for new and advanced players together, or both, not necessarily together, but both people will like it. And so I think much like the Gateway, which was what it says it is, a gateway, and the Illumineers Quest, these are basically board game add-ons to Lorcana. They get you hooked on the TCG potentially to buy all the packs and cards, but they are standalone products that you can play from beginning to end without necessarily having to invest anything else.
So and a few things I think I have to say. One is this idea of like standalone kind of games. You go in and I get that criticism, but Ravensburger already does that with Villainous. You can buy standalone things that it's like you need to buy other Villainous characters to play.
No, you don't. You can play every single one of them without it.
That's not true. There are single character add-ons that they sell for expansions to Villainous.
Okay, there are very few of them, and they're also getting away from those because I think people didn't like that idea. But you're right, there are a few single character add-ons.
Yeah, and so like
for
instance,
though.
I think like Jack's Skeleton was one.
Yeah.
That was a single player add-on for Villainous. But my point here is that like I the way I view the Illumineers quest, and I actually disagree. I do hope they do it again because I actually really like co-op games, and
I hope
that
they do
was a
something
really
different.
cool
I hope this is
co-op
something different.
option. But the second component I would add on is I think what's interesting about how they phrased, or like in the phrasing of it is like good for new and existing players, is I think they're really trying to hopefully cater to like the collectability side of the market by really leaning in to the classic animation side of it. And so I think Fabled might actually be, if it's a set, which we don't know, and it seems like Andy, you don't think it's a set. Brad, you're on the fence if it's a set. Kirsten, do you have an opinion?
Honestly, I don't really care. I like the art. I mean, really, like,
I think
it
it'd be
doesn't
cool.
matter. Take my money.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I think we're all gonna buy it, right?
I mean, yeah, I just really like the art. I'm excited either way. I kind of don't think it's a set based on the verbiage that they have put out so far. But either way, I don't really care. I am not deep down that road like you guys are. I am not that opinionated about it. I like the art. I'm gonna buy it either way. Bring it on.
Listen, we're three dudes with microphones. We gotta have an opinion, otherwise we
I
don't have a
see that.
show.
I like the idea that it might be both necessarily. I've also heard the idea floated around that it could be like a comic book or like a digital art
Give me
piece
that.
of some sort, like
yeah.
a digital novel kind of thing. So I'm fine with it potentially being more than one thing, you know. Not that Ursula's Return and the Illumineers quest were necessarily like tied together in their sets. They obviously had the same theme, and some of the like, you know, legendary cards sort of got that treatment on them with the sort of wisps coming over. So it's possible that like, you know, it's possible that we just have like a Fabled product that is just, again, I don't want it to be another Illumineers quest. I'm fine with it being co-op. I'm fine with it being some sort of replayable, something more replayable in my opinion, game, and it also having the same art style as, you know, like maybe not even called Fabled, maybe some other named but similar art style, you know, set, a whole set of Lorcana, because I do love the art.
One thing I've heard speculated too, though, is that it's a reprint. And
that I think is
definitely
bogus.
think that's really
if it's any kind of reprint, I hope it's like promotion, like, you know, alternate art. Yeah, and those cards, I doubt that it's a full reprint of anything.
Yeah, that's why.
But like, those cards, there are staples in that first set that are really hard to get now, and I think that, you know, the treatment that they could do is just
what cards hard to get from the first set.
No, I don't know, Rapunzels and dragons and Hulu Worlds and, you know,
at
all of the
partner.tcgplayer.com/rules of villainy. Link down in the description below.
But you know what I mean, though, right? Like, I don't know. I would be in for alternate art of those cards. You know, like, you know, so the original cards keep their value, and
that's cool too.
Yeah, I don't know. What if I had a choice? I would like more, like as Andy said, more comic books, more alternate things that in the Lorcana world. You know, it doesn't all have to be trading card games. It could be a board game, just a plain board game like Chronicles of Light that Ravensburger already does with Disney products, right? Which I'm still waiting for expansions for. If Ravensburger's listening, I hope that is something in the pipeline, but a whole another conversation. But it could be something like that.
You talk about that a game a lot. We should do like a
absolutely
like a little video live play where we play that game, or like
absolutely should. It's a 4-player game, 4 characters.
That'd be fun. Yeah. We should do that just to see, so people can get. I haven't played it. I bought it because I got it. It was like on.
We also haven't haven't played it yet.
So that's a good deal. I'm gonna buy it.
Again, it's something else that they put out. Disney, just take my money.
What about like a deck building game? That would be really cool. No. Fabled, like deck building games are, you know, it's almost like a card game in a box kind of thing that you could play over and over again. So it would have like Lorcana cards that they've hand chosen to be able to be like shuffled together and dealt out and be able to play in this sort of maybe like a Pack Rush-esque style.
Yeah, ultimately, I think my view on this still leans that it's a set. And the only reason why I say that is just its timing. right?
Mm.
So we know that Arcasia's Island is coming out in March, so that's like, you know, Q1. We know we've got the Reign of Jafar, kind of a late Q2, early Q3, and then we've got Fabled, which is late Q3, which kind of fits in that Shimmering Skies slot that we got last year.
Mhm.
So, you
Even
know, if we're looking at roughly like 4 sets a year, Fabled fits in. And normally I think I would agree, like getting a set name this early out seems strange, but like
They
we're
also
now
said
getting
all the
to-
others were sets, though, right? When they announced Arcasia's Island and Reign of Jafar, they announced with it that that was the name of the set.
Well,
It would be kind of odd for them
I-
to say Fabled and not say this is set 9.
Yeah, but
if it
this
was.
wasn't really. This was just like that. I think this is just like a product in a display case at like the toy fair, right? Like this wasn't
No,
an
this was
official
this was
announcement on.
this was
from
like a
that.
banner. This was like a big. The picture I saw was like a poster size banner or whatever. That
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the
And it has
official
official
Lorcana
artwork, too.
account
Yeah.
even tweeted about it, right?
Yep. Yeah. So this
Um,
is like an official.
But didn't
Yeah,
some news
media
article
post.
like wasn't it referred to as a set
No.
in some one of them?
Well, yeah, a lot of people are saying they think it's another set,
I think
but
it's
Yeah.
still just
there's also
speculation,
articles that said they think
so-
it's a reprint, and
yeah, but
And other websites have said that Arcasia,
it's
when the
confirmed.
art was revealed, was the first non-Disney character in the game. I'm like, that's not true. We've been following 4 Lumineers the whole time. You know, Martin's literally in that picture. You know,
Yeah.
so it's just,
No, it's fair.
Maybe-
It's fair. They don't. Some of the reporting hasn't always been super accurate. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we're getting. You know, we haven't seen but one card from Arcasia's Island and one card from Reign of Jafar. So we're still, I think, quite a ways away. Hopefully, we'll get a lore cast that will kind of clear this out. I would love a world state. Actually, I think is probably the more pressing thing than what Fabled is. I'm excited. Whatever it is, I'll enjoy it. I really do hope it's not a board game-esque type of Lorcana, though. Like,
I hope you're wrong.
like in
It's
a
not my
Lumineers
favorite
quest. I think that's what that is.
well, but here's the thing. I think if we're going to get another Lumineers quest, it's not going to be associated with Fable. I think it's going to be associated with the Reign of Jafar. I think it's going to
Fair.
come out in June. I don't think.
Why not both?
Yeah.
Why not what?
Yeah. Why not both?
Have 2 Lumineers quests back to back?
I mean, it doesn't have to be in a Lumineers quest, but it could
like
be
another
just be
board
some
game-like
other
product, yeah.
board game like the Gateway. You know, they released the Lumineers quest and the Gateway, I think, back to back sets, right?
Yeah. I just don't think like we're gonna get another like the Gateway product is meant as a very entry level product, and I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
think that's something we're gonna see updated for a while. Like Pokemon has the like Arena, I think is what it's called, which is very similar. And I'll be honest, like I really don't consider the Gateway a board game. It's the only board game thing about it is the fact that they've turned the play areas into a
Sure.
game
Yeah.
board cardboard. It's still
Yeah, I mean,
you're playing Lorcana.
board
It's-
game is a pretty
it's-
loose
it's a-
definition these days,
yeah.
right?
I mean,
Yeah.
if we're gonna call that a board game, we might as well call what we play every day a board game. 'cause
Yeah,
it's
I
the
think you
same
can call
thing.
it that. The difference is it comes in a box, right? I get it. The Gateway doesn't have great
Sure.
replayability, but I think the idea is if all the pieces get put into a box together and you can take them out and play it over again, that's kind of a board game, right?
Yep.
In my opinion, chess is a board game. Lorcana is
Sure.
only not a
I-
board game because you can't really put all the pieces in a box and then just like play them because of the
You can
deck
put them in
building
many
aspect.
boxes.
Put
which
them
I
in
think
mini
will
boxes.
be
What are you talking about?
Many boxes.
As you can see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else on the speculation front here?
No.
I'm all tinfoil hat outed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure folks are sick of hearing us talk about what we think Fabled is or isn't. And
Well, I want to know what they think. If you guys think, if you have any opinions on what you think it is, drop a line down below. We definitely want to hear about it.
yeah, absolutely. And just stress too. Again, we have that Rules of Villainy at Grape's Game, the 2025 New Year's Lorcana Spectacular live stream on February 8th at 11 a.m. The link will be in the description. The live stream link is already ready to go, and we're so excited for it. I mean, we're so excited. We thought it was not this weekend, but next weekend, and then we realized that it's actually 2 weekends from now. So we're real excited. But with that, let's get to answering your questions in Constituents Corner. So go on, take it away, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we're gonna treat this Constituents Corner as a Martin Carp sandwich, and we're gonna start with one of his. It is going to be the first question. What is your training routine for set champs? Do you grind out as much as possible, or try different stuff than just top with like a FOSSA list? So,
first off, you're not
seems
topping
directly
with a FOSSA
asking me.
list. That's not happening. No one's.
You wouldn't
topping with a
know
FOSSA
because you've never tried.
That's true. Also,
I've seen Brad try, and let's just say
I know some very good FOSSA players who have won set champions with it. I mean, Humble over at Lab has a Metafy about the deck, and I know Lynn's is working on or has 2 different versions of them that she's running. I think FOSSA, some version of FOSSA, I think is going to be my game night deck because I'm having a lot of fun with it right now. I gotta retire from Blurple, but not retire, but give it a little vacation because it just wasn't feeling good. We can talk more about that in the main segment, but to answer the question, my training is very limited. I have ideas all the time, but when it comes to playing the game, I only have a couple nights a week to actually get out and shuffle some decks. So I pick a deck and I stick to it, and it's been Blurple for the last couple sets. And I just I run it into every deck that I possibly can. I go to my friend, our teammate and our friend Reckless Ron's house, and get some reps in anytime that somebody's available, just to play a couple reps in between rounds at league night. Hey, you got another kind of deck? I need to run this into that and see what it feels like. But kind of get a feel for the meta around here and see if the deck that I'm playing is gonna be successful. And this weekend, unfortunately, I wasn't.
Andy?
I practice with Kirsten like a lot, like every night, basically. She plays the same deck over and over and over and over and over again until I beat her a bunch, and then she tries different decks, and whichever one of us basically settles on a deck that wins more has less anxiety come set champs time. So she was able to settle on a deck. I kind of bounced back and forth. I actually considered Blurple for a minute, but then I figured that's Brad's thing. I won't, I won't.
You can play Blurple.
I won't try and be a poser. Over
Actually,
here
no, you can't, because if you were successful with it and I wasn't, I'd never hear the end of it.
Yeah, you'd be so mad. It's not a bad list, but yeah, I think the best thing anyone can do is try and settle on a list sooner rather than later, and get a lot of reps in with that list. That said, I totally understand that it's very possible to just like play a bunch of different decks. I do it all the time. I know a lot of other players that do it. You don't have to, you don't have to just grind one deck over and over again. But I do think you should probably spend some time, like, at least thinking about it. Thinking about what lists you want to play, thinking about what your local meta is going to be like. Try and go to as many locals as you can leading up to it. And then online games, webcam games are great. We did a couple online games with our teammates. Was it yesterday? Or the day before? Just try and get as much practice in. Join your friends on Discord. Talk up what you're going to play. Try and try and get as much information as you possibly can.
Kirsten, what about you?
I mean, it's the same thing pretty much. But yeah, because we get to play all the time, so it's really beneficial for us to, both be Lorcana players and be stuck in the same household all day, every day, basically. But for me, at least personally, I like to stick with a deck and just kind of keep practicing with it, and I force him to change the decks around me because he's a stronger player than me, and like being able to pick up any deck and do pretty well with it. I can't pick up a red blue deck and do well with it. Like I've tried, it didn't work. So I think I need more controlled like training and trial and error for my deck that I'm going to pick. So having him being able to swap around really helps me become better at the deck I want to play. But yeah, and then like you said, just checking out what the people around you play a lot and what you think will be in your area. That's kind of how I settled upon my deck for this past weekend. Worked pretty well. So
I'd say.
yeah.
And
Helps with an
and for-
aggro deck too, right? 'Cause
and
It's a combo
for-
deck, sir. Thank you. Conversation over.
And I will just say, for $5 a month on our non-existent Patreon, you too can watch Kirsten and Andy live stream on a private YouTube channel.
I'm sure we'll be on Twitch eventually soon. I think we're gonna
yeah,
I think we're gonna make deck
Got some-
testing Tuesdays a thing.
yeah,
Deck
well,
testing Tuesday.
Deck
Might
testing.
be able to make some of those. How about you, Vince?
I find the closest 72 cards to me, and I sleeve them up and I play them.
sounds about right.
It's like,
Sounds right. Like I don't feel like you play as much as you used to, honestly.
I honestly don't. I'll like genuinely be honest that Azurite Sea has not been my favorite set of Lorcana, and so I haven't. I still love the game, but I'm finding other expressions of how I love the game. Like we had a new player at Fortuna today that I played with, and I haven't been practicing as much and stuff. But yeah, I mean, honestly, really just going to League Night and trying to play, and then trying to build decks and play against myself, to like think out the lines of like how I would play this particular game and stuff. But no, honestly, I didn't do as much practice for this as I have in previous sets, and it shows. I came in 21st out of 22 on Saturday, which was sad. Ruby Sapphire seems to work for some people, but man, it has not been working for me this set.
Yeah.
Go back to Ruby Amethyst.
I did,
yeah.
and I had a really great experience with it on Monday.
Good.
And then got wrecked today at Fortuna with it. I played into Blurple with it, and
right.
I lost 2-1, but I was able to pull one game off. And then Heather and I played 2 games, and I lost both of those just miserably into her Emerald Amethyst deck.
Who's running Blurple at Fortuna?
What's his name? Oh my gosh, this feels really bad.
Sorry, I put you on the spot.
I know. The problem is I'm so much better at faces than I am at names.
Sure.
He did play on Saturday at the event. I think he played into you, Andy. He was playing RA though. He's playing Ruby Amethyst. So maybe
one of the newer guys.
Yeah, one of the newer.
Ryan?
Well, newer-ish. Maybe
I met a new Ryan.
We have too many Ryans,
Yeah.
so I don't know which Ryan it is. Maybe that sounds right. I don't know.
Mustard Ryan?
Hey, Jesus made a comeback today.
Are you kidding?
Though. He came to.
Was he playing Lorcana?
He's playing Lorcana. Yeah.
Oh my god. He's trying to get that scar.
Well, that's exactly. He's coming back because he wants to win us. He's like, I just want to win one scar, and then I'm going back to the other game. And then I'll be back again.
I'll go play at Wizards and
he asked me like on the drive home. He was like, "Hey, can I get to?" He wants the one drop Diablo, and I was like, "Yeah, of course. I think I have a billion of those cards.
Sure.
It's a common card."
Oh yeah, because he doesn't have any of the new sets.
No, he has none
Oh, wow.
of the new set. No. I did tell him though that I am going to try out the other game, not this Thursday, but maybe at some point. I'm not leaving this game. I have too much invested in this game.
It's going to be the rules of the empire or something.
Actually, you know what? That's not a bad name for expanding the media empire.
I will never.
That'll be our sub channel.
I don't
Count
have
me
any
out.
direct experience with it, so like it's hard to knock it if I haven't tried it. But like,
no, it's not.
Lorcana is such a great game. It's so well put together and so many wonderful like card game pros from other games that I've been playing for 20 years just talk about how great Lorcana is. So I think
So I don't want to delve into this because this wasn't the question to ask.
this
but
is
since
the
we
question, all right?
are
Star Wars
talking
is
about it-
terrible. Lorcana
talking about it.
rules.
No. See, listen, I can't say anything about it because I've only played it once and I did not have a good experience with it. But I'm willing to give it
Yeah,
another
see,
shot.
1 star.
But-
Mickey good,
Not
Yoda
trying
bad.
But here's the thing: is that game revolves around leaders, and each set 12 new leaders come out, so the meta changes pretty rapidly in that game. Plus, the other thing is that you can play any cards in the format in any deck. If it just doesn't match the color you're playing, you just pay a penalty.
You know how many leaders are in Fortuna or in
wanna
in
know.
Lorcana events? A lot. We
Way
got
too many.
Chip is a ranger leader. We got the Grand Councilwoman is a Federation leader.
Listen,
Mickey
I don't know
Mouse,
why you're trying to convince
leader
me.
of the
I
band.
love this game. I'm not going away.
All right,
You don't
next
need no
question.
Anyway,
leaders.
next question.
Leaders
Yes,
in
yes.
Star Wars.
What else
Next
is in the
question.
mailbag, Mayor?
Yep. Sorry, we got off there. Second question is from Lorcana Sam over at Lorcana Heat. He asked, imagine if multi-ink cards works something like this. Each card has 2 abilities on it, one related to color A, the other to color B. When you play the card, you pick one ability, but your opponent gets the other. Example, Amethyst Sapphire card, draw X cards / put the top Y cards of your deck into your inkwell face down and exert it. So if you opt to draw, your opponent gets to ramp and vice versa. What are your thoughts on that?
First
Well, I
off,
think
Don't
we've-
play it.
that card would be unplayable.
To say we've touched on the idea of you get one or the other, but not you get one and your opponent gets the other. So I thought that was a little spicy, but
That is spicy, but I also
you
They already
really have to
that.
decide what.
there's a reason why I don't like the Amethyst Chromacon. Just because I get a
Yeah.
card doesn't mean I want you to have a
You to-
card.
Yeah, I just think a lot of these cards that help your opponent in that way just don't see play already.
Mhm.
And so I think if that were the case, we wouldn't see the play. Like the
Yeah.
card that like strongly comes to mind is Friends Like Me, right? Isn't that the
You both
Friend
get
like
me,
like
big
5
ramp
inks.
card.
yeah. And I was just like, nobody plays that card because
I do.
Well, okay, Brad, thank you. You play it. All right. Like, this is why you're not doing well in the
Welcome
deck.
Not
to Rules of
competitively.
Villainy, where
Not
2
competitively.
competitive Lorcana players
Come on.
quest and challenge their way.
Emotional damage.
So yeah, no, I just don't think it is certainly a spicy take. I'll give you that, but I just don't think this is the direction the cards will go, because I think fundamentally they'll all be unplayable.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Vince. The cards are either like there's a really, really fine line, and so the cards fall either unplayable and very unplayable, or they like are too good to like the ability is so good. Like Daisy Duck is one where the ability is so good that like you actually don't mind giving the negative to the opponent. For a while there, Yzma, shout out one of the ladies in chairs. She was worth it to give your opponent 2 cards to get the removal of a character off the board. But yeah, I don't know that you'd ever be able to like. It's really hard to balance when you have this positive. You're just putting things on either side of the scale, positives and negatives. One interesting thing that I think John brought up in the discussion in our Discord when we bring up some of these questions is the idea of like basically if you have an Amethyst character or card on the board, you get this ability, and or if you have a Sapphire character. So it's like 3 ink, draw, if you have an Amethyst card on the board, draw 1 card. If you have a Sapphire, put the top card of your inkwell, or your deck into your inkwell. And so it's kind of like that, was the lamp and the rose beast or Bell's rose thing. The ones where if you have a genie, do this. If you have a Jafar, do this. It'd be the same kind of thing, but for the 2 different ink colors. So that would be an interesting take on it, where I think it's kind of a compromise of that same sort of idea. but I still don't think Dual Link colors are coming this set. In fact, I don't know that the set's ever coming based on the information that we have. I wonder if it actually exists. Maybe that's why we
Jock
don't
is
have
in this
any-
set. It exists, okay?
I don't know. Maybe they just
Don't
don't
take
have
this from
the
me.
card. They're still making the cards. That's what happened. They're like late.
They remembered that Jock has to be in the set, and they're reprinting it to
Yeah.
make me happy, or
Mhm.
they don't want to lose the mayor.
No, I definitely know they've made this set, and I only say that because when we were in Chicago, when we were playing with one of the developers, I can't remember what his name was, but there was a card that somebody played, and he like had to look at it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I wrote this card like 3 years ago," and it's like I haven't. What does it do again though? Because like I haven't seen it in 3 years.
Wow.
Because I think they like hinted that they were on like set, like
10 or
7 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like 7, like they were way ahead of where
Chicago was
we
back in
were,
July, and he was talking about set 7 or 8 or something.
Yeah, something. So I'm fairly certain that the set exists and it's out there, but I really do wish they would start giving us something about it.
Mhm.
Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
You have any thoughts, Kirsten?
No, I think that those are all pretty good.
Okay. And our last question, completing the Martin Carp sandwich, he asks, what was your set champs top cut like? Would you consider it diverse? We had 2 on Saturday, and 1 I went to had 4 amber steel in top cut, and Sunday we had 8 unique decks, and I'm considering the pure RA and RA locations different decks. I'll start off by saying I'm extremely excited about our tournament at Grapes on Sunday. We had 8 diverse decks, entirely different colors combinations in the top 8, and it was wonderful to see when 2 sets ago every deck in the top the top 8 would have been ruby amethyst, ruby sapphire, and emerald steel. Maybe 1 amber steel, but seeing 8 different decks make it in a pool of 32 was
Awesome.
yeah, a relief. It's like, okay, a lot of people are playing a lot of different things, and that's fun. It makes the matchups a lot more fun. You're not going against the same deck every game. And I had a blast. I didn't do well, but I had a blast seeing that and playing it, So how'd you guys feel about it? I mean, you casted it. Kirsten, how'd you feel about all the different decks at Graves?
I thought it was great. I was kind of surprised at how many different varieties of decks there were, to be honest, because I expected more ruby amethyst and more ruby sapphire just in general, but there was a healthy amount of like everything that it was like I have no idea what I'm going to be playing each round. And I don't think I played anything the same. I think technically I played 2 different sapphire steel decks. Played Alex, obviously. And then my first round opponent, Brett, he also played a sapphire steel, and it was completely different than Alex. Alex. It's hard to put that S
Alec
with a C.
apostrophe S. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How'd you guys
Yeah,
feel
it was
about casting it,
good.
seeing all the games? I'm sorry, were you done, Kirsten?
No, yeah, I'm done. Sorry.
Yeah. Seeing all the different decks on the stream that you guys casted, I'm sure that was, nice instead of talking about the same decks over and over again.
Well, we casted a lot of this. We had some same people on the stream, so
Just the way it works out sometimes.
But yeah, I which is fine. I mean, I'm not complaining. But we had some pretty spicy matches, like you said, the Baja Blast match, which is on our YouTube. Please go watch it. But I also really enjoyed the final match. I thought that was really good. I think probably the guest cast with you, Kirsten, was one of my favorite matches between Justin and Link.
Yeah.
Which who you had played earlier in the
I
game.
did.
And stuff. I think you actually played him in the match before that.
Well, I can't remember what rounds. I thought that was round 5.
It was round 5.
And I had played him round 3.
Oh, you played him in round 3. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a really fun match to cast, in my opinion.
Any thoughts, Andy?
No, I mean, we were all the same set champs.
Yeah.
We need to remember to write down what everyone was playing at Fortuna next time. So I have that data. But
Yeah.
it was also fairly diverse. I don't know that I
Yeah.
played any. I'm trying to think real quick. Yeah, I don't know that I played any of the same deck more than once, really. So I personally love that the meta is as diverse as it is. It makes it much harder when it comes to deck building and deck decisions, but I think it makes the game a heck of a lot more fun.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to Rachel. She and her friend came up from Arkansas to play at Fortuna on Saturday, and I had sat across from her first game. She's playing Sapphire Amber, and it was no walk in the park. Nobody really plays that combination. You don't see it often. It's not really represented in the top tables that we've seen. But she called it her problem children deck, and it was all Lilos, Daisies, Donalds, everything to just Alice, get everything out there and lure as quick as possible. By the end of the 2-game match, I said that is a Mean Girls deck. That's what I would call it. And then I went home and I built some variation of it. I'll probably never play it, but it looks like a lot of fun. I had a blast sitting across from her and seeing that deck work. So that's just another example of the diversity that we have in the decks right now.
Yeah, I also had the pleasure of playing her at Fortuna as well,
Yeah.
and that is a Mean Girls deck.
Yeah.
For sure. And I'm playing a not so nice deck either. So, I was surprised to even draw with her, but I was like, man, this is rough.
I drew too.
We had a great time. We had a
Yeah,
fun time.
she was really
so
sweet.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Any final thoughts on deck diversity, guys?
Nope.
No? All right, that'll conclude Constituents Corner. If you'd like your questions answered by the villains in the future, be sure to comment on this video on YouTube, our socials, or join us on our Discord where you can comment in the Constituents Corner channel. And I will kick it over to you, Vince, for the main segment.
Thanks, Brad. And we're going to move into our main segment to talk about week 1, the set championships. So as we've talked a lot about already, we talked a little bit about our experience here. And we had set 1 here, but I think we've kind of talked a little bit about it, but let's just get it out in the open. How did we all do? Obviously, I already said I came in almost dead last in Fortuna. Andy, you played in Fortuna and top 8 it. Where did you actually finish?
Like 8th, 7th, 8th, whatever. I guess
enough.
technically I was 5th, right?
5th or
Because
6th because you lost the second round, not the first.
I lost the first round of Top Cut, but I had the highest seed of the people who lost the first round. So I would have been 5th, I guess. That's not terrible.
Yeah.
But I got a card. It's
Heck yeah.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
And I lost to Heather, who went on to get a playmat. So I'm actually
second place.
very happy about that. I got pretty darn whopped. She just stomped me.
I came into Fortuna. I mean, that deck is hard to play Ruby Amethyst against. I played that today against her, and man, I'm still trying to think the play lines through what I would do differently, or maybe even build differently that would make my deck marginally worse. But yeah, she pulled out that playmat, and I was like, "Oh, is that for me? Thank you." No, but
I think Reed would fight you over that, honestly.
She
borrowed,
Reed's
honestly,
boss.
I wouldn't fight Reed.
She borrowed
shouldn't.
one of my cards for her deck, and then won the playmat. So when she gave it back to me, I was like, okay, well, the 1/60th of the playmat that is mine, right? Because I lent you this card,
Just cut the corner off.
you'll just cut the corner out, right? And I'll get it a little framed, like one of the hockey player jersey cards, where it has a little rip of their jersey. It'll be like a piece of Heather's playmat that I've earned by lending the card. But she laughed, and then Reed gave me a dirty look. So
Yeah.
I said, I'm joking. It's okay.
All right, Brad.
Yeah, as I spoiled at the very beginning of the podcast, I didn't have a good week or weekend. The Saturday at Fortuna, I drew the first 3 games. We did 5 rounds of 2-game format. And it's one of the days where I was on the other side of liking the 2-game format, honestly, but we won't get into it. But yeah, I drew my first 3 games, and then I just straight up lost my last 2. So, easy exit from that one. I got lucky in the last 2, even, or the the last two that I drew. My second match was against Andy, which was really took the wind out of my sails. I drew against Rachel and I went against Andy, and I'm like, this is not going to go well. And then he won the dice roll, or maybe I won the dice roll, and then I lost on the play, which was just a real kick. And then somehow got lucky with coming back on the draw and winning the second round. And then same with Kirsten, as I with her diggy deck that just hard to keep up with, and somehow managed to get a win, but none of them felt good. It was just I couldn't get the engines going all day, and it continued into Sunday, where the first game I drew, second game I lost outright, and then I did 2 2-0s and then lost outright in a mirror. I haven't had a Blurple mirror in so long. And then Nettie, a friend of the show, Melissa, she got me 2-0 with a goat top deck in the first round that she had to dig for, but she got it and took me down. So that was the end of my day there. But it just was so disheartening. Like, after all this, Blurple playing and feeling good about it for weeks, it just couldn't fire off. It felt bad.
Kirsten?
Well, I started off okay. I got 9th on Saturday. I learned very quickly my deck does not work in a 2-game format.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the game format, but make your decisions around what it is, because it matters. I found out.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it. So it was okay. I literally had 4 draws in a row, and then I got lucky. I got paired against Mikey and managed to get a win, which put me in 9th. So close but no cigar. And then Sunday, I was actually debating on if I wanted to even play the deck that I ended up playing, because I was like, it didn't work yesterday. But me and Andy had talked about it, and I really wanted to try it in the best of 3 format, because I thought it would do well as long as I could potentially get lucky and win most of my dice rolls. And I did. I got fortunate enough to win most of my dice rolls, and the one that I didn't, I was still able to pull out a 2-0 win, and I ended the day at 7-0-1. So first place.
That is awesome.
It was a great day. I was
you did amazing.
quite shocked.
In the largest tournament so far yet.
Yeah.
In the St. Louis
I know.
area.
Yeah.
I still kind of can't believe it that I was able to go for that long without losing, really. I mean, I had obviously games that, we went to all 3 games, but just to end each round to be like, wow, I still haven't lost. Holy crap, this is really happening. And then at the end, it's like, okay, once I got past like I can have a mat, I was like, I really don't care if I lose or not. I just don't. I mean, even once I secured the card, it was kind of like, I don't care. I was sitting there talking to Hunter when we were playing our match on stream, and I was like, I really don't care. I'm happy either way. I'm just happy to have done as well as I have. And I was honestly a little terrified of his deck, because I had no idea what it was. Never played against a Baja Blast deck. Didn't know what was in the deck at all. And I, for the love of God, could not remember what cost shift Clarabelle was. So I was like, is it 4 or is it 5? So I definitely got rid of his Clarabelle at one point, a turn ahead of when I needed to. But I was just like, I got to do this now before it gets out of control.
Sure.
So, but it was definitely a really fun day. Overwhelming. Still kind of like a whirlwind of like, I can't believe I did that. Let's see how I do now. Just kind of for fun. I don't think I'll play the deck again. For set champs, just because I don't really want to try that hard.
And that's the way to do it. That's why Hunter was playing what he did, right? Is because he tried hard the day before he got his playman. He's like, all right, I'm gonna do something fun on the next day. And I'm gonna comment on your Clarabelle, like that Clarabelle being exerted. You probably made the right call, because who's to say he would quest it the next turn and give you that opportunity, right? So
yeah.
What I wanted to touch on, just real quick anecdote, when I was editing or not editing, but going through the stream and timestamping everything. I think it was in the game with Hunter and Britt, because I spent the most time in there making that video for today. Andy was keeping track of who was winning and who was losing. There was a moment where you won your round 4 probably. And it had to have been round 4, because that's when Hunter and Britt played. And he's like, Kirsten won. That means she's in. Yeah. And it was just like really cute, like he's like how much support, he was giving you, and as well as casting the game that was featured. And I was like, oh, look at Andy supporting his wife.
Better.
Yeah. And then in the final, he decides to be like, we play with this app on the table, every day.
He totally roasted me for not using the app, but I was too busy trying to keep it on the paper, which I had been doing all day. So it had been hard to remember to do both because like there were no rounds at the stream where we were only exclusively using the phone. We were always both players, no matter who it was, writing it down as well. So even in the game that I played with Hunter, he was the one updating my lore at the beginning, and then him remembering to do it reminded me I needed to do it. But I think at a certain point, me and Alec were both forgetting. So, oops. I had better things to think about.
But yeah,
I liked how he said that I would have to walk home though if I didn't win, or something like that.
And then he
I
tried
did
to put
hear
you under the
that.
bus for the ruby or ruby steel mill
Yeah.
deck as we approach 200.
Yeah.
Kirsten's gonna be the one that plays it.
I know.
don't
I
think
didn't
that's the
even
deal.
realize.
don't think
I didn't even know about that bet either. And he pulled me in for the interview, and he's like, "So you're playing Ruby Steel?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, because he got so nervous to the day as we got more and more subscribers that he's like, man, I should have never made this deal.
But heck, I mean, I'll do it, sure.
Why not?
But yeah, that I will say, like when we heard that you were matched into that deck with Hunter, both Andy and I were like, oh yeah, that Hunter's got no shot against
I mean,
that
I
deck.
was
It's gonna
nervous
be
because I
hard.
didn't know what was in it, but he did kind of spill the beans to me earlier in the day that he's cooked against aggro,
Yeah.
and then immediately faced Izzy
And
that
lost.
next round after he had told me that. And then like, I don't know, 5 rounds later it was me and him, and I was like,
Yeah,
maybe you should have told me that.
I was talking to him about it as well, and he was like, he tried to tell me he does fine into aggro, and I was like, really? Didn't you play Izzy earlier? How did that go? He's like, it went fine. And so I was like, hey Izzy, how did your match with Hunter go? She goes, I whooped his butt. And I was like, he says it went fine. She goes, no, I whooped his butt. So yeah,
I mean,
he had some coping
she got
going
one.
there.
She got one off of me on at Fortuna.
She played so
Yeah.
well on Sunday.
She's
I
really good.
mean,
Yeah.
her making top 8 in that big of an event too, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
3
Yeah, it's
women in the
great.
top 8, actually.
Oh,
What was it? 3? Oh, I thought
Yeah,
it
it was
four for
Megan
some
too.
reason.
Me,
I knew
Megan,
it was
and Izzy
Megan.
were top 8.
But yeah, so it was a great experience. So we kind of did go over this with that question from Martin, but I did want to ask, did anything surprise you about the meta that you saw there?
There was, so I thought I took a picture of it, but I guess I didn't. So you'll have to like go look on Ink Decks, or I wouldn't be surprised if Grapes does another like article about their set champs like they did the past couple ones. But I think Blurple was tied for most represented deck
that's what I was gonna say.
at
Yep,
the event.
5.
There
I
was
don't
like
think that's really
4
surprising,
hyper
though.
aggro decks.
Also not surprising.
It just like there was, not only was there this large diversity in deck lists, but there was like this very reasonably even distribution as well. Like we've seen at these DLCs, and it's like, you know, even in day 2s of DLCs, it's like all these decks, and then like there's a Ruby Steel, and there's like a, you know, a locations deck, or there's like a hyper aggro that made it into day 2 or something. But to see like such large percentages of these various colors, and then to see them all, you know, make day 2 basically, is pretty crazy. So I was definitely surprised by that.
Yeah, I think the thing that really stands out to me is not only how diverse the different types of decks are, but how we're starting to see evolutions within deck types. You know, so you had the Doors Mine deck that you played, Kirsten. We saw a Steel Song deck earlier. You know, we're seeing some of these more like hyper aggro versions of certain decks too. So just these like subsets of decks that we're really starting to see kind of played out. And, you know, while there's not maybe nearly as much variation in things like Ruby Amethyst, because we didn't really see like any burn decks per se, but is there are always these interesting like tech cards that people are putting in because there are more tech card opportunities. Like off the top of my head, Justin in Ruby Sapphire was playing the Raya that came out in set 6. That when you ink a card, you can ready another card, and which is already a character, which is really great card, I think, and worked really well to be able to like efficiently take out board clear when you needed to in certain spots of the game. So just kind of those were the real like highlights for me. We're seeing some of these interesting tech cards in the game, and also not gonna lie, seeing Bend to My Will work in that game was wild.
That's crazy.
Was honestly mind bending to see.
Crazy.
So yeah.
I saw what you did there. Mind bending.
I saw
bending.
I saw John playing that Raya card in Ruby Sapphire. Probably like 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point. It was one of those banner tournaments that we were doing, and I thought that was definitely a really nice card, especially if you're I don't know what his list is like, and I don't know what it's like at the time, but I didn't see any Medusas or Tremaines, and I think it was much heavier on the Maui Shark and a lot of the actions and things. What makes Maui Shark not great is it has no ETB effect. So you have cards like Vitalosphere to give it rush, and you have cards like Raya to let it challenge more than once to get more than one action back. I think those cards work out really nicely around the Shark, and I didn't cast the match we had Justin and Link on, so I'm not sure how much usage it got. I'm sure it's
I don't remember ever seeing it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's only probably like a 1 or 2 of, but it's in my Ruby Steel list. I think it's definitely not a bad option because you can, if you have a Raya on board, you can sing a whole new world before and ink after you get a card after the whole new world to then ready the character to then sing a whole new world again, or challenge and get the whole new world back and then sing it again. And we're trying to mill him here. It's a crazy world we live in.
One goal.
Yeah, that's a pretty good like sequence if you can get it off.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
Mm-hmm.
It works more often than you think. There's a lot of those readying cards.
It's annoying.
I think another one that I think Justin actually did use this one. We saw the maybe it wasn't Justin, maybe it was Ron that used it in one of his matches. We saw the Ruby Sapphire use it, the Shield of Virtue, right? That's another one that you can pay.
Costs so much though.
Yeah, it costs a lot, but I mean, in Ruby Sapphire, you have ink for days. So,
yep.
But yeah, the ability to ready, especially with how sort of board focused the game is this meta, I think, can be very underrated, really.
I think the only thing I don't like about that card particularly is that it is definitely like a real late game play in that deck. And that's the thing that I found playing Ruby Sapphire is that deck is real slow to get going to play in certain matchups. In certain matchups too, it is just a real bad deck to play. It just feels bad.
The Shield of Virtue.
Well, I mean, that's a Shield of Virtue. I think would make that deck even worse in certain matchups because again, like
Shield of Virtue works sooner than Raya, right? You could play a Shield of Virtue and use it on turn 4. Raya's a turn 5 that he gets the ready.
Sure, but like you don't.
Either of
like
them,
you
right?
one of them, either of them at that point in the game, right? And so it's just it's like honestly, like what I have found myself looking for in Ruby Sapphire is some card to play early that can answer my opponent's board to slow them down. And just quite frankly, those cards really don't exist for that deck.
I think they just don't exist while also being valuable elsewhere, right?
Right.
Those cards just aren't. But Shield of Virtue is nice, I think, because you can use it early. Well, I'll have to go back and watch it, and you guys should also as well. But I want to say Ron, in the first round match, we saw Ron play, right?
Yeah, it's Ruby Amethyst.
Yeah. I want to say he made like a crazy shield play that I talked to him about afterwards. And you can definitely use some of these readying abilities earlier to help fend off the aggro. And while they might not be the best tools to help fend off this, like to help fight in the early game, they are tools that also work in the late game for other things. And I think that's what Ruby Sapphire has so many tools to choose from. I think they're really trying to squeeze as much value out of any given tool. They want it to be as good as possible every turn of the game that they could possibly be top decking in.
Yeah. So a question that Jesus kind of posed at Fortuna today makes me think, like, after this last weekend, he asked, what is the best deck in the format? And that's my answer. I was going to ask you all is, do you think there is a best deck? And if so, what would you say it is?
Aggro.
I don't know if I have an answer, because that was part of like my thought process in trying to pick a deck is, what is the best deck to play that has the least, things that can oppose it easily. But the general answer is there's always something. Like, one deck will always beat whatever deck you pick up, no matter what, essentially.
Which is great. Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of liked that. Which I also think is why the meta has developed to just be a faster meta, and that's why you're seeing more aggro heavy decks and aggro inspired decks, because that's kind of the thought process is like, well, my deck can't just beat any deck outright, so I will just go faster and see if they can keep up or see if they can stop me. And I think that that's kind of where we've landed.
Yeah.
I think Steel is a really strong color right now.
Yeah.
That is very, very
also true.
aggressive and has a great tool set of like sort of fighting back. Whatever damage spell you want at whatever cost, ink ability or not, it's got it. And I think pairing that with Amber or Sapphire goes the fastest, and that is arguably the best thing you could be doing right now. And I think if you're not playing Steel and probably one of those two colors and going fast, then you should probably be playing Ruby, because it's the one that has the best control. And you should then either be playing Sapphire or Amethyst to pair with that to get the card draw and or ramp to be able to play that control.
But even then, there's still also these middle range decks like Amethyst and Emerald that kind of have that combo of both going fast and being able to have some sort of control aspect of it, and the card draw, obviously, because they'll just continuously quest and bounce, and their characters never truly die because they're too busy bouncing back to their hand, so they've always got other things to play, and they never really run out of cards. So I think that, those mid-range decks, even like Amethyst Steel, may not be as strong as, Amber Steel, but I think it's still a good contender because it can also fall in the category of going just as fast.
Yeah.
I think the Emerald Amethyst, at least from what I saw this week in my first round with Britt on Sunday, in which we saw later on stream against Hunter, that deck, when it moves, I thought I was on my way to a 2-1 victory against her. Game 3, I was coasting along, and then suddenly some shenanigans with Lyle and some locking down really changed the game. I was just, she thought it was over at one point. She even said it, and then suddenly it wasn't. The tides turned, and she was able to take control of that game with elements like Lyle and Elsa and whatever else she has in there. I don't have the list in front of me, but so my my initial thought when you asked me the question of what is the best deck right now, I was going to say something spicy, which we're going to segue into Harlan Sweet's Steel Sapphire and talk more about that. I've played a little bit of it. I played some on Monday night. I played a little bit because I almost ran it on Sunday. It feels really good. Like, and just doubling down on what Andy said about the Steel aspect with Calhoun and Doc and everything, and the John Silver, the 3 or 4 cost John Silver that comes out and makes. Yeah, he did you say potato captain?
Yeah, he's making potatoes.
Just threw me off completely. Yeah, like just the value you get out of that card to stop somebody from challenging. Right, you hit a Calhoun with that. That Calhoun is worthless. You already got it pulled up. And for the audio listeners, Andy is holding up a foil version of that John Silver at the moment.
He's making potatoes.
But between those 2 decks, those are be at the top of my list right now of something to seriously consider playing. I rolled the die. I made 3 decks for Sunday, and I rolled the die, and it landed on that deck. And I'm like, this is crazy. I can't just go into Grapes playing a deck that I've only practiced with one time a half an hour ago. And it's the same deck that Alec both won Fortuna with and got second at Grapes with. So it's one of those things where it's like based on the data and the meta in the area, Blue Steel has not had a lot of representation around here, and Alec came in and just crushed it this weekend with it. So that would be, that's pretty high on the list right now of, what I would consider possibly the best deck just for the way that it worked. You said, I think in your interview, or at least off the record or off of the cast on Sunday, that if you didn't win that dice roll in the final game, or if you weren't the higher seed in that final game, it could have easily gone the other way, right?
Yeah, because he's just as aggro as I am.
Yeah.
So it really would have been kind of a toss-up,
Yeah.
Shouldn't have gone to game 3 games though. She looked back over it.
I know.
And that move
I had
we were
some
talking about,
misplays
Vince,
where I could have
really?
secured the win in game 2.
Yeah, there was a spot towards the end where
I should have just played the Lawrence.
She had the win, and she instead fought back, inked a Lawrence, and played a dwarf mine, which set her up 1 lore short of victory.
Honestly, Annie and I looked at each other, and we're like, what just happened?
I was tired.
So much pressure. 8.5 hours into that stream. I get it.
I just want to say it is so much easier being a caster and saying something than being a player at the table. So it's not a knock at you at all by any
I know. I know.
It's just one of those things. It's one of those things when you see, we're just like, wait, what? Huh?
Well, no, I mean, it's the same thing with when I go back and watch it myself, and I'm like, well, dumb, why'd I do that? I could have just won, but
it happens to all of us.
Hindsight's 2020, because I've done that actually quite a couple times with this deck, because if it gets to a point where it's going that late where they can get those big enough characters, I get into kind of panic mode where it's like, oh crap, I need to make sure that I stop them enough that I can still win. And I kind of get in that mode of focusing on challenging, making sure that I'm at least still somewhat controlling them. And I don't realize how close I am, and I don't do the math right, and I don't realize okay, if I just stop challenging them, I could just win. So I've done that a few times, but yeah, it was a long day. I know I had made some mistakes in the first game as well, forgetting the stupid sticky Mickey resist. But it's fine.
I know, it's so hard. Sometimes you just. I will say one of the things that really was interesting on the stream was seeing how many times people play a card and the opponent would be like, wait, I need to see what that card does. Just to because they haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah.
Or they haven't seen that card played in the meta at all. And so that was just super
every card Hunter played.
I was going to say, it probably happened every game with Hunter.
I need to read that. What is that too?
But my answer, I think, still ends up being what we've Andy and I have long said, but maybe Andy's changing his mind to go to Steel. I still think Amethyst is the strongest. Even in this meta, I still think it's the strongest. Yeah. Granted, we didn't see that as represented in this weekend, but I do really think Amethyst is one of the strongest colors, and decks with Amethyst in it still do really well. We saw that with Izzy. when you pair it with an aggro color like
Heather.
Amber.
Even
You
Megan,
see with
she was running
Heather.
Ruby Amethyst.
You see Megan running Ruby Amethyst. So a lot of consistency in the top 8 for Amethyst. But
Yeah.
with that said, as Brad alluded to, one of the hit decks in our local meta this weekend, and it seems like it was a hit meta elsewhere too, based on what I've seen, is this Harlan Sweet Sapphire Steel, if I could get it out right, deck that kind of took the meta by surprise here. That was a deck I was not expecting to see represented.
What killed me
at
was
all.
I went back in our Discord and there was a moment 11 days ago now where I saw the list on Twitter. He was egging people on. I was like, hey, take this to your locals and then tell me how you did with it. I really want to know. And I saved the list. I looked at it. I'm like, that looks fun. But the thing that really turned me off about it, as Kirsten said, it's mostly aggro. It's some standard blue cards, standard blue steel, but there's no ramp. And it's like,
aggro.
What's that?
It's 100% aggro. There's
Yeah.
nothing non-aggro about it. There's four strength of a raging fires. That's it.
Yeah, and 2 babooms.
Oh, and 2 babooms. Sorry.
And yeah, I think 3 manners, but it's one of those things where, like, when I played Blue Steel, it was to ramp up to the big cards, the big tinks, the aerial, the dime on aerial, all that stuff, all those shenanigans. He cut it all out. He's like, you know what? Let's just go, let's hit the gas from the beginning with, he's got Mickey, Robin Hood, Calhoun, Doc, Smee, Alice. Alice is an MVP in this deck. When I tested it with Ryan Hines before the Grapes tournament, thinking about playing it, Alice comes out and I'm like, oh, he can't do anything about this, and now my Smee's questing for 3, and then of course our Lord and Savior Gantu is in there, and pulling him off the top and playing him was just icing on the cake on one of my games. It was absolutely great. And then the synergy with Baymax, I love that Baymax card. You hit that on Smee or any of the characters with resist that stuck around, instant lore. Ludo, yep.
Yeah. I think the downside to some of these aggro decks, and this happens in Amber Steel and in the Sapphire Steel deck, with the exception of if you can't get the dock trigger, is that it can easily run out of gas. And that can be its ultimate downfall in this. And watching some of these matches, we did see that. It's if Alec runs out of cards to play and he's top decking and stuff, and you're able to and honestly, I think it's a little worse in the Sapphire Steel because Doc is really the only answer you have. In the Amber Steel deck, you have, not only do you still have Doc, but you also have Rapunzel as well.
And
so that
Storm.
gives you another and Storm, to have some other opportunities to draw into other cards or dig for more answers. And so, ultimately, this is why, I think on paper, I would argue that probably Amber Steel is a better matchup into this, just because of finding those answers.
Yeah. Is another one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
because you can play it from the discard. Yeah. So here we are, we keep just talking about more answers that they have. But ultimately, I still think that's the downside, right? If the meta can figure out how to slow these decks down and put the brakes on, there's no they cannot win, right? If you slow the game down and you put the brakes, especially on a deck like this, it gasses itself out because then it's relying solely on top decks.
I don't know how many times I've played Andy deck testing it with his Ruby Amethyst, where I could be at 19 lore even, and he'll come back from 3 because it's gotten so late in the game where he's just constantly pulling out all of his removals, and it doesn't matter if I pull out the Lilos because he's got 5 characters on the board.
Yeah.
We saw this actually earlier, Brad. I think I watched you test against was it Jake, friend of the podcast, member of the team, was playing Sapphire Steel, and it was basically just good value characters, this idea that I'm just going to just fill my deck with cards that all have to be answered, or else they're going to get me a considerable amount of value. like more value than they should. Like a Smee getting you 2 lore and trading with a 3 willpower character for 2 cost and inkable is more value than it should have. So you just put characters like that, Lawrence, Calhoun, Sticky Mickey, even cards like I said Alice at the time. I think he was testing Tadashi to get a little bit of ramp in there, but Pluto, even cards like Pete or the potato captain wasn't really a thing back then, but Baymax I think was being tested, Gantu as well. They're cards that as long as you can keep playing them, then they constantly have to be answered. And I think to what Vince was saying, the answer is there isn't viable answers for most of these threats until much later in the game. So I think the decks that do the best at sort of controlling these are ones that almost sort of relegate themselves to saying, look, I can't stop your Daisy Duck on 1 or 2 or maybe 3 sometimes even, but at best 3. So like, why don't I worry about that on turn 3 and try and do the same thing I do normally on turn 1 and 2, which is maybe draw cards if you're Amethyst or ramp if you're Sapphire. And I think the main difference, besides just sort of running out of gas, is that like these decks have a very singular track. There's 6 cards that require any sort of decision, like I'm going to stop my opponent from doing anything. Other than that, you should always be questing, essentially, except maybe Calhoun obviously exists and stuff. But
right, but that's because Calhoun has a better, actually favorable.
right,
like it's favored to trade
right,
than to like just quest with. So you would rather, because
yeah,
then it becomes basically a must answer. You're saying I'm going to get my 2 lore, and you're telling your opponent you have to take this character off the board, or don't exert anything that this character will take out because I'm going to do it again and get 2 more lore. So it's like an immediate threat. In a lot of ways, I view it as like there are a lot of cards like this, I think, in the game that are kind of like either big threats or even kind of certain threats. For instance, like the Diablo we talk about, that 0/1 card, right? Its threat is to say, I'm going to keep getting lore until you decide to take this card out, and then I'm going to draw a card. So you have to make the choice. Do you want me to have another card in my hand, or do you want me to just keep having getting a lore? Now, obviously, there are decks that can take advantage of that, right? If you're running a discard deck, maybe you don't care because you can say, okay, I'm going to take it out, and then I'm going to discard your card that's in your hand, and gain value in that way. But again, these are must answer kind of cards because they're forcing your opponent to have a decision point, a choice, by having some sort of threat on the board.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
But yeah, I think Harlan's deck was a good choice to bring. I think in general, aggro decks, some of the more well put together aggro decks that honestly steel is a great color for these aggro decks. Not necessarily aggro, they're just like good value. They play on curve. They're on curve decks. And I think it's a good choice. We actually had Harlan chilling in the chat, which was really cool during the live stream. I know that Alec was super happy to hear that the person who was the largest inspiration for him to play this deck was there rooting him on. He spoiled it a little bit when he told us that the deck doesn't do so great into Amber Steel, and we were like, well, we'll see what happens. But yeah, overall, I'm not surprised that it did well. I do think it was very underrated. Like I told Brad, we saw this being tested, and I thought to myself, well, this is just like really good. Like it seems very hard to beat, and it never really recrossed my mind as I'm sitting here playing against Kirsten over and over again, and her, steel amber aggro deck that is just it's just really, really hard. You have to have the right cards in order to survive the constant onslaught of just cards that are too good, to leave around.
It's absolutely, I think, a great deck, and it's one of those things is like I really wanted to try to make Steel Sapphire work early on in the set, and I was clearly going about it the absolute wrong way by trying to really make it a ramp heavy deck versus and just really never occurred that making it a more aggro deck was the answer. And it does. I think one of the things is that Ravensburger, I think, is going to have to answer as the sets go on. We've talked about this a lot, is making cheaper removal to kind of slow down some of these aggro decks, to give some answers to some of these aggro decks out there. But ultimately, kind of going back to the question of is there a best deck? Is this it? I think it's one of the best decks in the meta. I think probably the Diggy deck is also up there as well. I think in the right circumstances, Ruby Amethyst and Sapphire Ruby. But the thing is they all have weaknesses that can be exploited by other decks. And so in some cases, you either have to be lucky about your matchups or just really be a better, a really great player with the deck you have, and stuff. Because there was a match, that I think, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. Maybe it was the Amethyst Amber deck. That should actually, I think, probably be somewhat favored into the Steel Sapphire deck a little bit.
How so?
Well, I say that because I think it has some of the ability to draw cards that Amethyst gives you, and it still plays the same kind of utility cards that that Amber plays. So it still plays things like Daisy. It still plays it has Lilo in it. It has Stitch. It also has the 1-drop Maleficent. Some of them variants have that in there.
Yeah,
and stuff. So it can go faster.
I'm gonna play Calhoun, and then you're just gonna lose.
Yeah, they do have a lot smaller 2 questers for sure, but when you get to the draw package, it's the Chromacon and it's the Rabbit, and if you're already at 4 ink, you're still wanting to drop low bodies and fast questers in that deck. So it's still a race. If you get the nut draw, I think maybe the Amber Amethyst deck could beat it out, but I think Steel naturally has the answers to take care of it too.
Well, maybe, but this deck is running the real one answer. I think it's running overall, besides maybe Calhoun here, right? In trying, the thing is I think the Amethyst Amber player is not playing to answer your opponent's board. It's trying to outrace your opponent, right? So I don't care what you do, and so the answer that Steel has, that this Sapphire Steel has, is really Strength of a Raging Fire. I mean, it has characters like Calhoun that can swing into it to answer
Sticky
the
Mickey
board.
Doesn't take any damage from those 1 costs. He just picks them all off one by one. Yeah.
But the thing is you're then having to devote resources to slow your opponent down, and so that prevents you from doing because the thing is Sapphire Steel also wants to race, and so you're now actually forcing your opponent to you're slowing them down in the game to answer. And so I'm not saying it's a blowout. If you sat down that an Amber Amethyst player is always going to win that match, because they're not. Obviously, we saw that Alec beat his Amber Amethyst opponent. But I'm just saying, on paper, if you had 2 players of equal caliber, probably the favored matchup there, I think, would be the Amber Amethyst player into this matchup.
I don't know. I think so too.
That's fine. You're both
Yeah,
wrong,
yeah.
but that's okay.
I just feel like the Amber Amethyst is going to run out of cards, and you're going to be at 5 ink with your big hood that's shifted, or your beast that's going to be drawing you cards, and you're just going to pick off everything that that they play.
Beast. The Sapphire Steel does have Sad Beast for card draw. I think we were forgetting about that. You just usually don't get there because you've already won the game with all of your other good cards.
Well, but I think the thing is like it's not. That's true. I did forget about that as a card draw character because I don't think we ever saw Alec play that card in any of the matches that were at the table.
We'll just
we did see Cogsworth finally. He did make a play.
What ends up
and
happening?
That's a great card.
What ends up happening though is just that like when your opponent plays a Lilo and you play, like a Sticky Mickey, you've played the better character. They're going to get 2 lore, but then you're going to get to take it out, and your character sticks around. Same with then a Calhoun further gives you a huge advantage in that tempo, where you can get into a sticky situation with Amethyst if you don't have, or with Steel if you don't have Ruby or Amethyst with it, is the Daisy Duck, obviously, because Brawl is really the key there, or the Fox is huge on that. So you do end up losing a bit of tempo by having to spend 2 characters essentially to take out that Daisy Duck, or in 2 turns. But
right, because your only other answer there is, I don't think the Harlan Sweet Pet doesn't have Lawrence in it, right?
Right, it doesn't have Lawrence in it.
No.
Although I'm just sort of saying Steel and Sapphire in general. Whether it's that specific list or not, what options sort of really does it have? And
my main argument about this, of why I think it's like on paper probably a little bit, is just it can go faster.
Well, it does go faster.
Yeah,
but the problem,
and that's its out, right?
Yeah,
but if it doesn't get it,
I don't think it goes faster. I don't think it goes enough faster, enough % of the time, really, for it to be favored in the matchup. I think, especially because the Sapphire, it's not like Ruby Sapphire where they don't have anything low to the ground or on 1, 2, or 3 essentially. The Steel Sapphire is still playing stuff on 1, 2, or 3, and generally they quest as much, maybe a little less than the stuff you're playing as the Amethyst Amber deck, but they're bigger. They're bigger and they're beefier, and they can trade into all of your stuff and still stick around on the board and then quest for something. And so, like, if you make it all the way to turn, 5 and you're playing something like a Cogsworth down, now, your Smees are able to just, constantly take things out.
No, I have no
extra,
argument. Right? I think we've talked about this, that I think that's one scenario where actually as the game goes on, Steel Sapphire becomes better. Yes, I 100% agree. Once you get down to areas where you're getting to the point to play, Cogsworth or, Beast to be able to draw cards more consistently and stuff, I do think, but ultimately it's if you can play, your Lilo or your Maleficent or your Daisy, and then you can follow up with Piglet, and it's you can, I think, actually move faster because while the Steel player does have beefier characters that can answer, they'll stick to the board. I still think you're going to get more value in questing out, and your opponent is still going to have to, at a certain point you have to stop answering your opponent's board and actually start questing, right, and stuff. So you need
to make up enough tempo
right
while you're answering in order to beat out that point where you're right, they're going to play something and your only answer is going to be strength because it's not exerted, and they're at 18 or whatever it is. Right?
This is our new segment. Vince takes the hot take opinion, and everybody else.
I feel like the only answer is to just me and you, or 2 of us, play this matchup and see who comes out.
Well, see, the thing is
I just want potatoes.
Potatoes. Right.
The reason why they're beefier.
About the main segment.
No, I think we're good. We should move on to the villain of the week.
All right, let's move on to the villain of the week.
All right. And that's me, I guess, because
You got this.
I'm the special guest and I chose the card for the villain of the week this week. So apologies to Gantu. This week's villain of the week is from set 5, Shimmering Skies. It is Doc, the Bold Knight. He's a 2-cost uninkable rare card in steel. Classifications: Dreamborn, Ally Knight, 7 dwarves. 1 strength, 3 willpower, quest for 1, but the ability drastic measures. When you play this card, you may discard your hand to draw 2 cards. And the art is by Marina Marino.
Well done.
Yeah. So, see, and she doesn't have as much practice as you, Brad. No, I'm just kidding.
I was waiting for it. That's why I initiated, to get that out there, because the entire time she's reading it, I'm like, well, they're going to roast me after she's done, because she sounds great.
I'm just kidding. You
My
do
project management
fine.
voice
You do
came out. Sorry.
fine. You do fine.
My
Yeah,
meeting
so-
voice.
So,
It's a 2-cost to draw 2 on a body.
Yeah.
For any
But he
deck
just-
that runs with low cards.
He
It's
does
good.
so much work. I don't know how many times he just saved the day for me. Like being able to drop him and draw 2 cards and then hope that they're probably low cost cards because that's all my deck is, and then just drop those cards too and be like, what you gonna do now?
Yep. And your deck specifically, being a knight character with a 3-body, makes him last a little bit longer. And you can just, what's the cost to move him to the mine? Is
2.
it 1, 2? He moves over and shoots 2 damage to something too. So even more value in a combo, of course. But in your deck, and then where he's really popping off right now is the steel amethyst deck, where you can just bounce them and do it again. After the draw, you pull a fox, you pull a snake, whatever else bounces cards, an elephant if you're bold enough, and you play that Doc
don't play
again.
Elephant. Don't play that card.
Yeah.
Why not?
I'm not as big a fan of
Do you want
Doc
to argue again?
Amethyst and Steel, honestly.
See, I was gonna try
Amethyst-
an Amethyst Steel, but we'll
Amethyst
see.
has so much card draw as it is. You really shouldn't need the Doc. And one of the big problems with Doc is that he's a card that you kind of have to play 4 of, because, like, if we look in Harlan Sweet's Sapphire Steel list, like Vince said, that's the only draw, right? Like, there's no other way to draw cards other than the Sad Beast, but that is much later in the game.
Robin Hood.
Is it play Robin Hood? Does it play the shift package Robin Hood?
He plays the
Yes,
shit package.
he
Robin
did.
Hood. Yeah.
So you get the 1 card off the Robin Hood. So there's this ancillary draw, but the Doc is like your main refill engine, and you need 4 of them in your deck, but you never want 2 of them in your hand at the same time. It's really,
That did
really
happen
bad.
to me a couple times,
Yeah,
and it does feel really unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, especially in my deck and the way I was running it, I almost didn't mind sometimes playing him without the trigger because it's just another body, and then just play the next one the
Sweet,
next
though.
turn.
It's
I mean,
also
every now and
smart.
then I
Yeah.
would just discard it, but you just
Yeah,
have
you
to
have
do what
2 in
you
your
have to
hand.
do.
Play 1 or play both if you can, and then just move them to the mine. And you got 2 storms with that as well, without the draw.
Gets
Yeah.
better if
But-
you have the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem is you're talking about a lot of resources that you don't have in
It
that.
depends on
In
That's
Yeah.
fair.
that game. I mean, so I think that's the only problem. I think that is the downside, right? To this
Mhm.
card is that if you need answers and you're looking to do that, and you still need those resources to play, you can be put in an unfavorable position by needing to play him to find the answers you're looking for.
Mhm.
The only I think upside of that though is probably if you're having to do that, you're probably behind in the game because you're trying to stay alive, right? But I'm just trying to think when we always talk about finding your outs in a game, right? What are the strategies to stay alive, to hold to the next turn? Get to try to change the tables to control the game state. And so I think those scenarios are not ideal, but for sure this is one of those key cards in those steel aggro decks to be able to draw those cards. And I think it's hard because what's really sucks is especially if you're a player that's okay, how many cards you got in hand? It's 1. It's yes, cracks knuckles, and then you turn around and you draw a card. You're like, I'm gonna play this with, it's like a 1-drop character, 2-drop, and then I draw 2 more cards, and I'm gonna play those out, and you've got a wide board yet again and stuff. So it can make it hard for, like say a Ruby Amethyst player to control the board effectively. Because it's, you kind of got to think, okay, is this the time I want to play something like Be Prepared? Do I feel like they've committed enough to the board? But also you as a player can then know that I'm going to hold this card. They're at 6 ink. It's like, I'm going to try to maybe entice out the Be Prepared, on a wider board and quest and move. And then they, hope my opponent on 7 Be Prepared. And then I will play this, dock, refill my hand, and, it'll be my turn. So I'll have 3 cards in hand to be able to do that.
Yeah. I think
it's definitely a must-have in like most steel decks. Maybe not Amethyst Steel because it has other card draw ability. Sure, fine, that's viable. But like, I mean, I know Emerald Steel still runs it. I'm assuming that like, whatever. Yeah, obviously the Steel Sapphire ran it as well. Has to. So no other option.
The dock is the only time a dock is not good in your hand is when it's the second dock in your hand. I really think that's the only time it's bad, because it's not a problem. It's not like great early game. Obviously, you're just not going to use it, but you just like hang on to it until it's the last card in your hand, like you said, and then like later in the game, it's perfectly fine to top deck. Like, yeah, you'll be low on resources, but you just play dock, and then, like Kirsten said, everything you get is going to be low cost anyway.
Yeah.
You know what? A good time. I was thinking about this card, I think walking my dog today or yesterday, not this card specifically, but the one I'm about to mention. You know what a good time to play dock early is? Like you said, you don't want to play it when you have a full hand, right? When you're running the Tiana from set 2 to when she's exerted, you can't play actions. So you just dump your hand.
Still, right?
What's that?
That's still turn
Isn't
5.
Is she a flood? Because she shift though? But she's not a shift, is she?
I don't remember if she's a shift. I don't think she's a shift, but she's a turn 5 on
She's
her
definitely
board.
she's a 5
turn
top.
5 to exert.
Yeah. Okay, never mind. But it just occurred to me like, ooh, if you dump your hand, that's a quicker way to dump your hand to get Tiana working. But she's 4 cost, so you can't exert her till 5 unless you're playing Amethyst and you play her with Cogsworth. So boom, answer.
And I don't
that's
think
the combo.
I don't think you ever want. Well, the Cogsworth you have to pay 1 to play the Cogsworth, so then it's still a turn 5 play.
Dang it!
And then you also have something that you have to swing the Tiana into something. So like, you gotta hope that they have like a Diablo or something that's like a 0/1. I just think that like.
Well, you don't have to swing the Tiana, do you?
If you're rushing her, I'm trying to exert her as fast as possible.
Got it.
You don't ever like for Tiana and stuff like that. You don't ever want to give up your whole hand to try and do that. The Tiana is only good when it's like it's like a dock. It's good when it's the last card in your hand when you can you can play it out.
Just trying, guys.
No, I get it. I appreciate the creativity. I just think the answer here is Pete, right?
No actions.
Why?
So you can't play actions, right?
Pete stops actions.
Oh yeah. I thought we were back on dock, and I'm like, what? How does Pete stop dock? Besides,
and the benefit of Pete over Tiana is that if I play a Pete, there's no actions next turn, period. But if I play a Tiana and I do rush shenanigans and I get it exerted, and I have no cards in my hand, it's no actions until she's gone, and then it's like womp womp,
Womp womp.
Yeah, and I feel like she can be effectively removed by a lot of decks.
Yeah, she's a resist too. Like, yeah. Yep.
Sisu,
big Sisu,
Brawl,
right? Little Sisu, yeah.
All right, so what I've learned from this podcast is I need to play Vince, Blue Steel, Amethyst, Amber, and now I need to make Tiana dock work. So let me write that down on my things to do.
All right, get us to 500 subscribers, and Brad will play the Jacob's deck.
You don't need to subscribe to see Brad play jank decks. That's for sure.
Oh,
That one
boy.
comes free. All right, that one.
Yeah.
All right. Any last thoughts about Doc?
Doc, not specifically. I wanted to shout out the artist Mariana Moreno. I was looking up her other cards while we were talking about it. She has 21 other cards in the game.
Oh wow.
All look pretty good. She did 3 of the dwarves in set 5. What Bashful and Happy were the other 2. Sticky Mickey was another one. So we just talked about him, so I wanted to reference him as well. But yeah, shout out to her, and I will be plugging you in the or to her if you're listening, you in the description below to your Instagram, because it looks really. I went over there too, and it looks really good.
You should also we'll also link her website too. She's got great artwork over there on her website. Before we go, I meant to say this in our main segment, but I just wanted to say we don't generally do any market stuff on our podcast. But do any of you have an idea of what the Scar card is worth after its first weekend on TCG Player right now?
So I was
like
looking the other day after I won at Grapes. I think it was at like 100.
I need to know because that's how I'm going to get it.
And I think the mats were like 100 for the non-champion, 150 for the champion.
So right now, you can get a near mint hollow foil for $48.
Oh wow.
Are you kidding me? Remember the
Brad's
people
like,
who were...
I'm gonna type in my grand card right now.
yeah, I'm going to play Fun Decks this weekend. Let's go. But no, it's like I don't want to get into the scalping part of it. But we saw people posting them on Facebook last week for like $200 each, and it's like that's just it just takes the steam out of the community to see that kind of crap happen.
But that's why we host our events.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Don't spend that kind of money on these, because there'll be plenty of opportunities. Plenty of stores around here are hosting this event. Plenty of opportunities to get one, and there'll be possibly second chance events as well to from us. So, yeah, it's $48. That's insane. Like that's wild.
But... only after the first weekend too.
Yeah.
So
it should only go down, which I'm not mad about. I don't really care about the value. It's about how I want it.
Well, I mean, I just my speculation on that has a lot to do with the fact that obviously we've expanded to the 8 cards, but I also think there have been a lot more stores that have been added to the play.
I mean, even in our area, there's a lot more stores this time around that we're seeing on our local list being hosted than the first set champs that were being hosted. But I think that 8 cards drastically makes a difference, obviously. Literally doubling everything.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. Well, with that, let us know your opinion of Doc in the comments below. And let us know your thoughts on who you think should be the next villain of the week. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you're joining us on audio, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
Vince is going to get mad at me for throwing this in here, but I wanted to throw it in earlier. If you do happen to buy your Scar card on TCG Player, use our link down in the description. It doesn't cost you anything, and we get something out of it. Which, by the way, the link in that description is on YouTube, which if you're not here, you should definitely join us, like and subscribe, and hang out with us on our live stream and our next episode.
I don't know why you think I'd be mad at you about that, Andy. I'm 100% supportive of this.
Because I didn't stick to the script, Vince. I'm sorry.
Vince plugs a Patreon we don't have throughout every episode. You think he's gonna be mad about that?
Well, I threw it into the script. I keep adding stuff to it. We're like over.
That was me. That was me.
The music's playing in my headphones. Like I'm supposed to be off stage at this point. I'm sorry.
We have gone off the rails. We understand your time is valuable, so we appreciate you spending a little bit of it with us. If you would like to follow along as we plot our devious plans, consider following us on our socials. We're on Instagram, Blue Sky, and the platform formerly known as Twitter at Rules of Villainy. We also have a growing community on Discord in which you could join with the link below.
And thank you, Villainous Kirsten, for joining us this week. Until next week, stay safe, fellow villains. Be wary of wannabe heroes who want to disrupt your villainous plans. And as always, remember the rules of villainy.
I just bought a Scar card.
I'm joking.